Good morning, Martin.
And how are you?
Thanks for being with us this morning. I know you're going to cover things on how we can get ourselves ready for lending and just look at our background before we even start.
Yes, Anne.
So I'll leave you to it. Thanks very much, Martin.
Thank you very much. So today, I'm just going to speak briefly on some funding options and preparing for approaching for loans. So just to run through the overview first, I'm going to talk about preparing for lending, some planning around your application, some areas of financial assistance if you're having difficulty at the moment, and then a general overview of the main lending options that are available to you as a business. Just starting with the preparation for a lending application, just make sure that your year-end accounts are up to date. If they're not, talk to your accountant or bookkeeper just to get them in time and get them finalized. It would be helpful if you have your management accounts up to date or at least within the last 6 months, just so you have some figures to go with as well when you're approaching the financial institution. Very important to make sure you're on top of your credit history. So there's the ICB at icb.ie and there's the Central Credit Register. Maybe I would recommend that you would get a printout of your own personal report so that you see if there's any issues there that you're not aware of. There may be a situation where you took out a couple of loans around the one time and you're repaying one and maybe not repaying the other one. If that's the case, you need to deal with that very quickly and enter into a new arrangement to get that back in order. The reason for that is it will affect you in any application that you take with any of the main banks, as they will be the first thing they will look at to see if there's a problem there with your past credit history. The difference with the Central Credit Register is that it goes back over the lifetime, whereas the ICB just for the last 6 years. So just to bear that in mind. Is there an innovation of your business required? Very important with the effect of the COVID-19 restrictions. Very difficult to put a benefit, cost or otherwise in how that's going to impact your business going forward. But it's very important for you to have some form of costing put on that. What's the cost of setup? What's the cost going forward? What are the incomes you're going to need to cover that? And crucially, is this going to be permanent or only a short-term measure? So some lenders will require a business plan. If that is the case, you will need to incorporate some of the information I've already mentioned into that application. Talk to your accountant or advisor in putting that together so that there's a format that's understandable to you and to the lender. Bear in mind, most of the main lending institutions will have sector specialists that will be able to support the local management team on the ground. So they will be able to get a good understanding of what you're trying to achieve there. But it's very important to have a very clear business plan if you are required to do that. Some elements on the planning for the application. What are your immediate needs? What needs to be done straight away? What is urgent that cannot wait? How capital expenditure will benefit this. So whatever spending you have to do, what's the immediate benefit? Is there a tangible benefit directly of that? And to quantify that benefit to the business. So you will have the cost and whatever has to be spent, but very important from a cash flow point of view as regards how that's going to benefit you in the long term. Very handy to do some kind of budgeting or cash flow forecast for yourself. It's obviously very difficult at the present time to know how that will impact, but it's very handy to have some form of baseline. Maybe try a 3-month one initially, extending it out to 6 months when you're back up and running. The benefit for that will be, it will be able to gauge how you're doing against where you need to be. You will have your year-end accounts, you will have your track record if you've been in business for a number of years. Nobody knows how the present circumstances are going to affect us long term, but you need to be able to see what you expect or what you're required to make a profit and to be able to pay your bills. So very handy to have that as an ongoing tool rather than just a function to do every now and again whenever your bank requires it. Make it useful for you. If this expenditure is of a cosmetic nature, maybe update to furniture or some of the interior, is that urgent? maybe it is, maybe it's timely to do it, but just that's something you've got to decide because of the cash requirements you're going to have to put aside for that. And in cash flow, have you explored all the options? There's a big push on all the costings that have to go out for the business. Have you looked into everything that has been your outgoings, your income, and is there anything there that you don't require to be paying that you can delay? Maybe if you haven't already, I would encourage talk to your suppliers, to your loan providers, to other service providers. Examine any bank statements that you have to see is there any non-essential items that you're paying that you can either arrange a delay or that you can cancel if you don't use them anymore. To move on to the next section for financial assistance. So just bear in mind that there has been emergency overdrafts and payment breaks or interest-only periods readily available from the main providers, and indeed from the other financial institutions that have provided lending as well. They've been very amenable to discuss new arrangements. If it is a case that this short-term measure isn't enough for you and you need more a long-term arrangement, don't be afraid to restructure any borrowings that you have. Very important that you try and deal with the situation you're in, and in an organized, planned way, to avoid any unpaid items or missed payments. It's very important you're leading the discussion in that, and you keep an element of control if you can be proactive in that area, and make it realistic for yourself. What can you afford? And if you don't know, maybe the cash flow documents, or go back through the accounts and see what's a realistic amount you can afford in that. When looking at any borrowing, really see, is it a short term or is it a long term? Short term can be anything from 1 to 3 years, longer term, 8 years plus. What is in line with the expenditure you have or the level of debt that you have in place? You will need to discuss that with your accountant, with your banker, and to come up with a proper solution there as to what mix or solution you need to deal with that. Again, analysing your direct debits, remove any non-essential, try at all costs, as I said, try to avoid unpaid items without agreement, because you really will hamper yourself in your future deals if there is an excessive amount of unpaid items in your account. So really very important that you have made some arrangements there to deal with those if you feel that there's going to be a problem. And look at what supports are available. On a personal level, there's mortgage payment breaks. On a business level, there's the payment breaks. If it becomes too much of an onerous task, there are other support mechanisms available. On a personal level, the likes of MABs, if it gets to a very difficult situation. But there are organisations that can help. And just to bear in mind that if you are looking for one of the structured payment breaks that came in during COVID, you need to have applied for the extension by the end of June. So you need to act there sooner rather than later. But just to give a quick overview of some of the main lending options that are available. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the SME Credit Guarantee Scheme. This is going to be an update of an old scheme. Term is up to 7 years. Minimum amount is 10,000 and the maximum is 1 million. This is very helpful in relation to loan applications where they're viable, they make sense, but because of banks concerned about the level of finance, or maybe as a result of an overall facility that you have with the bank, that they require security. In this case, this will overcome it. Originally, it was designed where there was a decline and then you reapplied. Now, under the new scheme, you will be able to go to the bank directly. And the government will cover that, the security aspect of that with a guarantee up to 80%. Bear in mind, there's a 0.5% premium on top of the existing banking rate. So it is a normal lending rate plus 0.5%. It used to be 1%, but it's now 0.5%. So bear that in mind as well when you're applying. Future Growth Loan Scheme is very flexible fund in that it's a long-term up to 10 years, starting at amounts of 100,000 to 3 million. Now, there is some discussion on that they may reduce that to 50,000, but that's not confirmed yet. It requires some form of government legislation be put in place. So would hopefully be in place for sometime in August. Again, this is an update of a very successful scheme that was run last year. Very low interest rates, depending on the amount that you're looking to borrow. Very wide range of purposes. As I stated, they're usually for business improvements or expansions. There is an interest-only option available. The big benefit of this over some of the other schemes, it is an unsecured and no business plan required for requests up to $500,000. Now, this has a very low interest rate compared to the credit guarantee scheme, and it'll be really down to your own personal circumstances which one you request and which one you look for. I would suggest that if you are thinking of going down the future growth loan scheme, I would go onto the SBCI lending site and register straight away with that in advance of it becoming available, because it's no doubt that it will be heavily oversubscribed when it actually is inactive. So if that's the proper scheme for you, please act sooner rather than later. Microfinance Ireland, a very flexible scheme. Recently, the maximum was increased up to 50,000 for businesses that are affected by COVID in a very severe way, which obviously most have been. Loans are starting at 5,000. The first 6 months have special arrangements on that, but bear in mind that it is only a 3-year timescale, so it is a very short timescale. So just bear that in mind from a repayment point of view over the period. There are additional benefits for local enterprise office clients. They will be able to receive a discount on their interest rate and also have a mentor helping them in preparing the business plan. And it is for businesses with less than 10 employees and a turnover of less than 2 million. Some other options that may consider, if it is a case that you have an awful lot of borrowings with one particular institution and you're coming under pressure for new facilities because of that, the level of finance that you have, maybe one option would be, if it is an asset-backed product, you may look at a leasing option. There's many providers out there, and that will reduce the overall exposure with your own bank and also take away the security element of it. So it may be an option there if you have small equipment, large equipment, furniture, and some updated catering equipment or the likes of that require any funding. That's an alternative than getting an overdraft or a term loan. There are short-term funding options available. There are numerous alternative lenders. They all have slightly different lending application and criteria, but generally there is a much faster turnaround, and there is by and large less of a credit requirement to be provided to get the application approved. Bear in mind, a lot of them are shorter term in nature. Most of them don't go beyond 3 years, so it's not suitable for longer term lending, but it is an option there to consider if speed is the requirement here. And there are a number of SBCI and government supports that have been provided. Just one there is the Restart Fund. It's directly aligned with your corporate rates and council rates, and that's something to be worth looking into. There are a number of other supports available there that have been widely addressed in the media. And so just to sum up, your accounts and documentations in order, complete a cash flow for your own requirements, will help your banker, but it will also help yourself going forward to see where you need to be as a business. There are a number of lending supports available, and there are a number of government supports available as well, and there's also help in the background. And bear in mind that if a payment break is what you require, the end of June is the final date for that. And if I can be of any assistance, my contact number is on the screen, and I'll be available for the Q&A at the end of the session. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for that, Martin.